getting back to the curriculum for this week. We're going to be going over a lot of offensive attacks, also a little bit of defense too. We're going to, keep going from where we left off from last week with that whole Hilagia situation. And then we're going to add a lot of attacks from like that anaconda stuff that we were doing last week, and also from like that head-on position from like a wrestler's front headlock, or I'm sprawled out on my opponent, and let's get this done. So the warm-up we're going to be working on a lot this week is we're going to work the Hilagia. We're going to get right back into everything, and we're going to start to work that Hilagia. My arm that's over on the sides, going to open up her lapel. I'm able to feed this hand, thumb into the lapel, and then this hand's going to come underneath to the far lapel, thumb and grip. So on the Hilagia, it's thumb and grip, thumb and grip. I'm going to secure myself. I'm going to walk my legs like the clock, one over the other. My opponent will walk with me. Just to talk about this choke real fast, and I want you to notice how I'm never going past the shoulder. Okay, so my hips is always staying past the shoulder. That being said, we're going to tap them out, make them tap, and then I'll let go, and I'm going to walk, keeping my back flat, and then I'll come off the side this way, switching the hands, walk, make her tap, let go, keeping my hip up, so on and so forth, okay? Now, another thing that we're going to practice, that we're going to be practicing on is, what happens if I walk too far? What if I go past her shoulder? What if I feel vulnerable? What if I feel like my opponent's going to defend the position? So, I never get stuck on stupid. I'm going to get the choke, and let's say I end up walking too far. I think I'm past the Hilagia position. And by too far, I mean my hip goes past her shoulder. I feel off balance and vulnerable. So I'll just let go, and I come back out to this squared position. From here, I'm very confident. Something I want to talk about is these hands is blocking her hips, okay? My legs are sprawled out, and typically I'm going to be trying to cover her head with my body. Now from this position, I'll feed this hand, four-finger grip into this lapel, and then this hand will be four-finger grip into the opposite lapel. So it's almost the exact same as Hilagia, except Hilagia's from the side, it's thumb and thumb in. Now I'm more in that north-south position, and it's four-finger grip. Near side on the neck, far side on the far lapel. Now I like to walk this leg up to the top of the head. I'll squat my other leg up. I want you to notice how I'm completely perpendicular on my opponent. Also, there's not a lot of tension on the neck right now. The neck's rather loose, and I allow myself to give myself space and some slack on the gi to allow myself to sit to this position. Now when I'm sitting in this position, notice my leg is tucking her head in. I'm going to bring this leg over the back, my knees squeeze together, and notice how I'm on my shoulder. I pull both hands, boom, Peruvian necktie, okay? So now going back over more simple techniques from this position, where this person's squared up, they're trying to attack my legs, maybe they're trying to get a takedown, pulling a guard, a half guard, who knows what they're doing. There's a lot of simple solutions to this. So once again, keep these hips blocked, keep your hip away, keep your hip low. I always like feeding this lapel into this hand, because when I have my hand on their neck, automatically I'm putting them in check. They need to be very cautious and conscious of the moves they make. Now from right here, I always like just simple like collegiate wrestling type stuff. I come to the cow catcher. I'm going to bring this arm from across the back, and I'm going to turn her body. When I do this, I still have my hand grabbed in that choke. I like to stay chest to chest, and I pull her head up to get that tap. Now, so let's say something that's going to happen on their defense is maybe they work their neck out. If that happens, I like to come knee on the belly. We haven't talked too much about knee on the belly, so it's kind of getting that ball started. I'm going to come knee on the belly. I'm going to feed this hand in, second hand underneath, four-finger grip, and from knee on belly, I pull her into my chest to hit that cross choke situation. Then, just like when we always work cross choke, we'll put that thumb in from behind, we'll rotate around, and this time I'm not knee on belly. I'm side mount, I have her back off the mat one more time, my elbows just squeeze together, boom, baseball bat choke. Going back to that north-south on the knees position, I'm right here, I'm blocking the hips, Sometimes she doesn't give me that arm. Her arm's sucked in tight, right? So now we work to that knee tap. Once again, just some folk style collegiate wrestling type stuff. His hand's going to touch this knee, and I'm going to break my opponent down. Now the only thing I have to remember is to come in underhook with this arm, lay her back flat, crank the neck up, choke one. Realistically, this is really solid technique, so they're probably not getting out of this. But if they do, I come right back to knee on belly. And if you want, you can keep this leg far away. Some people don't like to because it exposes the hip. Some people keep the knee down. Jiu-jitsu comes in many different ways, so however you feel strong and comfortable with base, and really it's always the situation that's going to dictate where your position is. However, we're going to finish the same exact way. We have the forefinger, the cross choke, and then we'll come off, knee on belly, thumb in, arm behind, boom, baseball bat choke. And we're hitting all these attacks from that north-south position, And we're going to go back to what we were doing last week. We're going to hit that anaconda and that Darce situation, okay? To me, they're brother and sister or, cousin moves, let's say. They're all related. They always mix. So, that's how I want us to take this time. And this stuff is kind of a little more wrestling orientated, but that's great because we like to practice grappling. It's not always so jiu-jitsu based, even though it is, because we're using submissions and we're working to finish. However, when I approach my opponent when we drill these moves, I'm going to be on my toes the entire time, and I'm going to have my shoulder base right behind my opponent's neck. And now once again, I'm going to come in neck side, my outside arm comes in arm side, and I like to gable grip right on her arm, and I pull the post. Once I take away their base, I grab my bicep, my leg to the side of the grip is going to kick in, my head stays to the side of that grip, and I'm going to roll through. Now, once I'm to this position here, I keep my bicep, her head's on my chest, and I'm walking in, as if I'm making them walk. And I'll walk the entire time until they tap. Let's say they never end up tapping, and I'm wondering, what am I going to do to finish? I always like to hold this tricep here. I get back up to my knees, put this arm through, so her triceps in my armpit, my arm's on the bottom side of her neck, and then the same grip I had on the Darce, on the anaconda on this side, I'm grabbing my bicep. I switch this arm through, I'm using the same grip on this bicep, and I pull into the chest Darce choke. Now, let's say I get to Darce choke, and I'm just not having any results. This guy's a catfish. I can't choke him. He's surviving. So right away, I like to go this thumb in grip. I come to the side, and as you can guess, I come this forefinger in grip. This comes around, and now I'm in that baseball bat situation. Now, like I said earlier, we're going to work a lot of different offenses and defenses. So this person works up to their knees this time because they're fighting me, okay? Now, you can try to choke right here, but this person's going to be moving and fighting. I like to find control. So from here, I'm going to roll underneath, bring them over the top of me. I hop back to my knees, my head's on the floor. I block her face with this grip, my outside arm. I pull this arm, and boom. Baseball bat choke from top arm in. Woo, do that again. So like I said earlier, we're going to be adding to a lot of the things we were doing last week and the week before, and we're going to open up like the creativity to the moves. So last week we started to work this anaconda defense. We'll talk about this a little bit, and then we finished with halaja. But this time we're going to kind of give us more of an artistic approach to the situation, get our bodies moving, maybe open up our minds to different ideas of attack. So, my opponent, anaconda me. And remember, right when they anaconda, we're going to grab deep into their tricep. We're going to put their shoulder on top of their shoulder. We're going to swing this arm around, putting pressure on her shoulder, and we're going to come out on top. And this arm's going to be trapped, okay? Now, the other week we were grabbing that anaconda situation, the halaja situation, which is fine, okay? But now let's be a little more creative. I have this person's arm trapped. I like to push over this head. Now I keep my legs squeezed. You know, as if I'm going to arm bar right here. Far-fetched though, but this is my first point of control. Body seated right on her back. I have a good center of gravity. Now, typically what's going to happen is her arm's going to bend to the inside. So when the arm bends to the inside, I keep my hip by her shoulder. I'm going to grab her far leg. I'm going to pull it and roll. And we fit right back into the arm bar. And moving on, keeping that wrestling aspect kind of to the curriculum. We're going to go over three-quarter Nelson. There's a wrestling three-quarter Nelson, and there's like what I consider a jiu-jitsu three-quarters Nelson. We're going to do the jiu-jitsu three-quarter Nelson today. Three-quarter Nelson and Darce also run hand in hand. So it's what I use my three-quarter Nelson for. So let's say I'm on the side of my opponent. I'm going to bring this arm underneath her armpit. This hand's going to come to the top of her head. I like this gable grip. My elbows come together, and I use the three-quarter just to break them down off base. And as you can see, I have my Darce choke always right here. So the two really run hand in hand. But of course, the person that has good base, I break their base, they're always going to build back up to their knees. That being said, I'm going to break them down. They're going to build up. I'm going to break them down. Now let's talk about the building up situation, because we could go back and forth to that the entire time. But let's read in between the lines. This time she builds back up to her knees. I can always take this outside arm, bring it right back to that anaconda situation, and hit that choke. And then once again, we can always come back to Darce and hit that choke. And that being said, my opponent can always get back up to the knees, and we're right back in that three-quarter situation. Now, one other thing I want to talk about is a different idea on Darce. If I break her down and she's up with that anaconda and she's in sync with that Darce choke, okay? I break her down and she builds back up. I can just keep my hand here. I cut my hip from the side, and I can Darce her from top. And when I Darce her from top, it's the same situation, except my neck nails, my arms on the side of her neck. I grab, I squeeze everything together, and I like walking in this direction. Now, not so much that I'm bulldozing her down, but I allow her to move, because the longer I stay here, the longer that I can choke. Now, from here, if I'm not... And then, so once I switch back up off to here, notice, I'm right back in that anaconda situation, okay? And, of course, when we get to the anaconda, we don't want to sit too much, because they'll be able to defend. So I'm right back in that whirlwind of disaster. The last part of the curriculum of this week is we're going to work a little bit of defense on this Darce. This in particular defense I really like. I approve in every aspect of this move. It's a little bit of a process, but I really abide by it. And it's pretty much foolproof, and it keeps my opponent busy. You have to keep in mind that once the process gets started, just use it till the defense is completed, okay? Don't ever give your opponent the chance to progress the position. So we're going to start off. They're going to break me down in the three-quarter situation to Darce. Now when they Darce, let's make sure they're grabbing the bicep and everything's really tight. Now the first thing I'm going to do is this outside elbow is going to suck in, okay? And the reason it does that, it just takes that pressure off my neck. Now next, I get to my knees. And when I'm to my knees, I start having this hand on this wrist. I'm just trying to make my opponent's arm small, okay? Now, from this position, I'm going to step up and I slide in half guard. Once I'm half guard, I put my shin in between the leg to that scissor half guard. And I'm going to extend my lower back and body, breaking their grip. It's impossible for them to hold on to the grip. It becomes their arms against my entire body. My legs, my lower back, my arms, my neck. Anyhow, I'm still controlling this arm to the outside. I pass it off. Now, how I'm going to take the back right now is also going to be new to us. I do what I call an outside lockdown. So if my opponent twists this way, I already have this leg hooked through. So I'm going to hook my foot on her foot and my foot on my foot. From here, I pull the hip and I kick the leg straight. When I kick that leg straight, notice I have to control that whole leg in her base. From here, I like to come underneath both lapels. I'll sit her up straight, okay? We have that cross choke from back, from each side. And then also I'd like us to finish that side cross choke from the back as well too. I have this grip here, thumb in. I like to pull this hand out by the elbow, my knuckles towards the head, pushing the head, palm going flat towards the ground, my arm that's on the ground, my forearm's flat, and I pull that arm through, I push in my hip, and arch my back to choke. Thank you very much, guys. I know it's a lot of info, but we have the whole week to practice. So once it gets started, we won't stop. We'll be able to twist and turn it many different ways. I appreciate you watching these videos, and I'm excited for next week. You guys have a great one.